I just called him, you know, he just, well, he called me, they called me last night, and I called him this morning, and then I just called him, you know, so that was the last thing. You know, fragmented, so it might make it better than the solid, you know, whatever. So,
All right, everyone.
that's all, that's what I'm saying.
Do we have one?
We have to do this, but I'll take care of it this time. I'll just keep it up this time.
Okay.
So you need it, you want it?
Yeah, one. So how's everyone this morning? So first thing I would like to do is ask everyone this morning to offer dua for Brother Salim and his family. His grandson got shot last night. Yeah, shot in the head. So he's at Presbyterian, and usually in these kind of situations, the best that we can do is pray. You know, and pray that, you know, the young brother doesn't return to Allah with the weight of whatever he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I didn't hear what was going on.
Brother Salim's grandson got shot last night.
So we knew this.
Salim,
Oh, really?
yeah. And that's a family that's already been dealing with the trauma of losing someone. You may remember Hafiza, his daughter, and she got caught in a crossfire. You know, and so these are just the types of things that happen sometimes. And the reality of our community is that oftentimes many of our young Muslim youth are involved in things that, you know, they shouldn't be involved in. And, you know, as an imam, I have a lot of experience washing bodies, burying young people, you know, and talking to them. And the best thing that we can do, I've come to understand, is pray for them, because Allah is the one that guides people, and not us. Sometimes we mistakenly think that we can do something, but the reason that we can't do anything is that there's a part that the individual has to do as well. And so that's just, you know, so those types of things that we've been talking about, things being out of your control, those are the types of things that are out of our control, you know. So we pray to Allah that He recovers, and inshallah that this will be a life lesson that he learns from. Inshallah. And we have our neighbor, Tracy, who's been our neighbor forever. Her son he's one of the people that, you know, my medicine I spent some time talking to. He's not Muslim, but he's our neighbor. And I remember when he got shot, he was on the streets trying to do street business and realized that he was out of his league. He got shot 6 times. The blessing from Allah is that he's walking around. You know, he's since changed his life, because he said that's all he said he heard the words, but he couldn't hear it. And then he felt that he got a wake-up call. So it's always possible for someone to turn their life around. And that's part of why we should never assume the role of, a law, that we can do something. Sometimes you can't. And the best that we can do is offer prayer and guidance, and example, and support. So, I guess that's a perfect segue. So we have a question this morning. It's a perfect, no, I'm saying we do. And I'm saying that what I just said is a perfect segue to the question, because the question is kind of heavy, but I don't want y'all to get heavy. Okay? It's philosophical, but I don't want y'all to get too philosophical. Try, control yourselves. We have several intellectuals in the room. And may Allah bless you to be the best intellectuals ever, brothers and sisters. But in this little short part of the class, I beg you to keep it simple, okay? Because what has happened is that things need to be simplified for most people. Most people need things that are clear and simple, okay? So the question is, what is the meaning of our earthly existence? That's real easy, right? No. Keep it simple. I know. What is the meaning? What is the meaning of our earthly existence? Oh. We're going to talk Fatima and Jada, Tiffany and Fatima, Regina and Aisha, Stephanie, Teresa, and Ayana. You guys start to chat. Brother Salim, Brother Muhammad, Hakeem, and Berlin. What is the meaning of our earthly existence? I'm going to give you guys a little help. So when you think about this question, right, it really is a reframing of a question that we would ask as Muslims. So that's like a conversation starter.
I just want to say, serve the law.
I was ready. You were going to start I was like, okay, well, I'm waiting here.
I just sent a law. The president of good news, just give them the word of the parents, the word of well, he already knows who everything is. Not just us, but us. Everybody else. You both be doing people say you have left over.
It's white cop. Yeah. And from the phone and leave time. I don't think nobody else will this game. Why is everybody always paying? You always know that.
You better join the group.
My mom when I got home, I told now it's like
We have here my little pastor.
about 16. And then I remember I used to live I was right after they come back. Like they helped. I don't mind you discussing it, but the structure is like I had a problem with how you make a noise. You listen every day. And that's the way it was raised.
I'm more concerned about proving wrong.
Right.
He like he's Dick Cheney's son.
So I think it's very different. And I think it's.
People go to one extreme.
Think about all the children. Donald Trump took him off their game. He has looked through the experience, right? So he goes to now. And he fell into that trap.
But.
And the sad part about it, in a sense, is like, he's been momentum. That says a human society.
That's the scary part.
That's the scary part. And see, I'm talking to brother the other day, right? He said something like,
That's right.
is we can do somebody's behind. I said, brother, get ready for it. You know what I said to him? I said, how many of you have to use? How much ever you love? That's my point. You go a lot of places, don't go there.
So that's where
The other part about it, a lot of people loud, right? He gets them because I mean, it's not my wife. Remember when they had that?
Right.
But see, I'm not like that. When he said one time, I was going to some Muslim in Jersey, cheer. He said, they never know before the so that's all. He doesn't have to put his people over here. If they backdoor him, right? They'll have been with what he The caveat is that you treat you, and that all depends on who you're picking. What happens is that some will call him for something, and what they'll do is, I mean, I was not fair to him. And I was saying, he gets right when people tell him they're not going to now
that's a whole other thing. And that's too much to be with. There's an individual in there
because he's running so much.
Okay. Because I realize that the longer that we talk, so let's get some feedback. So I overheard an interesting discussion here. I'm going to start with Brother Hakeem and Brother Vernon.
Well, our take was this, first of all, we're here to worship Allah, period. Right? And having said that, you know, we should take care, like, of what, we should be an asset to society and the world than being, you know, a liability. So we have to assist anything where we can make things better, right? So you look at this earth, at one time it was pristine, all that kind of stuff, and because of a number of things, it is where it is. So we should be trying to, like, as best we possibly can, is restore things the way it's more pure sense.
Mm. Okay.
That was what I did.
Well, I kind
Want
of
to add anything?
I looked at it from a perspective. If you had something that you can contribute, like if you knew how to be a doctor or something that you can do, some kind of talent you had. That's the way that you can contribute. You had the prayer part, but then there's the other part of whatever you can do to contribute as far as.
What do you mean the prayer part?
Well, you can, as far as worship, I mean, he said we're here to worship Allah, and that's why he made us, which is true, but there's another part where whatever you can do, like you can be a doctor, you might be a teacher, you might be whatever you are, and that's part of, contributing whatever you have, whatever you were given, you give back, so that's one way. That's the way I look at it.
Very good.
Not discounting the other part,
Mm-hmm.
not discounting the other part, but at the same time.
Well, both of you talk, and it's, yeah. Okay. The far corner, the farther end, Fatima and Jadad.
Okay. I'll share both. Jada said to worship Allah and to survive and to do what we need to do in order to fulfill that goal. And I said individually to earn our way back into Jannah, and collectively as Muslims to protect and maintain the earth.
Short and to the point. Let's see. Okay, let me hear from Sister Stephanie or Sister Janice or Anna.
You can. Oh, because I was writing it down. So in the spirit of keeping it very simple, we talked about submission and how submission captures everything. How it's both humbling, it's a place of gratitude, and it allows for praise of Allah, and that our life should be about service to others. Very simple.
Service. Okay. Regina or Aisha? Were you in that group too, Sister Simone? Okay.
So he said to remember Allah, to submit to Allah, to return to Allah, and to worship Allah.
Yes, and I said Allah created us because He wanted to be known, and He wanted us to worship Him and to adhere to the oath that we all took in the world of souls.
Tiffany, Fatima. Weren't you guys together? Yeah. Oh, it's Sabria, okay. Someone going to report your findings?
The thing that comes to our mind is worship Allah, and I agree with that. And thinking about the Quranic verse where he says he didn't create mankind except to worship him. But then I was thinking, which is probably the non-simple part of it, why on earth could you ask like specifically earthly existence? And so I was saying there are different creations.
You say that again?
Different creations, angels, jinn, and human beings, mankind.
Cars.
We're all talking about the Quran, right? But angels are.
Can you hear me?
And they worship, and some jinn worship, but they're both in the realm of the unseen. And we're in the realm of the seen, and it's just like a completely different experience. And so I don't know. It just made me think about the hadith where I think Allah is telling the Gabriel, and he's basically saying like, who would make it to heaven because it's like covered in so much displeasing things for you in this earthly existence, and then who would make it to hell because it's covered with, you know, such appealing things from our earthly perception. So I just was saying, like, it's a different experience, it's a different path, and perhaps this is why Allah said when He created Adam, the angels prostrate to him, because it's.
Can you hear me?
It's worship, yes, everybody's worshiping, but it's too heavy. I'm sorry.
No.
It's too heavy. Okay, it's good.
I just said to glorify and worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And in glorifying Him, and the two words kind of go together back and forth, because in glorifying Him, we should be the best that we can be. We should strive for all the best that He created us in, and in that way we glorify Him, and in that way we worship Him.
Do we have any input from us?
Yes. Sister Saida, go ahead.
Oh, can you hear? You can see? Okay. I said existence is to serve Allah as He commanded, and and to live the lifestyle according to the example of our Prophet.
Okay.
Anyone else wants to say anything? This I have two comments. Checking multiple places. Naima said the meaning of our earthly existence is to worship Allah. And Zainab says it doesn't matter what other goals we set for ourselves. It always comes back to that, worshiping Allah, pleasing Him, and trying to obtain the ultimate reward.
Okay. So, the common word, the common theme, and I attribute it to the fact that this is a group of believers, right, is that worship is central. Right? So that's why I underlined it. And that's why I put it on the board. Because we are here to worship Allah. That's what the Quran says. So from the perspective of a believer, the meaning of our earthly existence boils down to this idea of worship. Now, what I'll take a moment and do is, so you, Vernon, said something very important about making life better, something like that. Mm-hmm. So did you. And a few of you did as well, right? So, oftentimes, the word worship is reduced instead of expanded. Mm-hmm. So how do we reduce the word worship?
Okay. I'm just thinking back, like when you take Shahada, okay, and in your mind, this is, you know, in your mind that everything, when we talk about worship Allah, it means going to the mosque, praying 5 times a day, and looking at the right part. And I'm just thinking back in my mind saying Catholic codes. I mean, I understand that then. You have to get rid of the Catholic codes. You might have lived in neighborhoods for 20 years. You know these children, so you can't be with these.
Can't talk to the Catholics.
Right, because it's going to do something to you. So it's going to make you disbelieve, you know. So this is my mind thinking, so you like in a box.
In a box.
That's one thing, you know, you're in a box. You don't smile, because sometimes we look so sad. But through the years, you realize that, for me, worship is everything that I do. Job, cooking, every part of my life. I have to take this to me everywhere.
Okay.
That's me, you know. I'm not in a box. Right. I enjoy life.
In fact, if I may add, when you took Shahada, Allah took you out the box.
Right. Yeah.
Because before Shahada, without guidance, you were in a box. So the box was whatever the influence was. It was other than Allah. Some people are in a drug and addiction box. Some people are in a heedlessness box. Some people are in a materialist pursuit box. Because if you ask the same question to an open audience, that would include believers or non-believers, this would be money, get paid,
we get the idea, man. We get the idea.
I did something like this with a group of high school kids.
Yeah, I was going to say good thing wrong with those.
And when I was talking to them, I was like not graphic, but close to it. So sometimes
You ain't got race in her.
well, because that's what they do.
Yeah.
They don't care about my shape. They come as they are, right? So anyway, but the list will be whatever. For some people, it's power, dominance, and control. No matter what, at any cost, right? For some people, it's this, right? So forget the angels, forget the jinn, all that imaginary stuff. It's this, right now. And all of these represent, if you will, a box that limits you. Now you can self-impose a limitation. And when we limit worship or reduce worship to coming to the masjid, praying 5 times a day, changing our clothes, changing our diets, and we neglect the most important aspect. Because some of you, I think, Anna, you said submission. A few of you said submission, right? Now, how is submission connected to the word? How is it connected to worship? Because you have to submit first before you worship. Submission is inside. That's the relationship that we started out when we started this class, saying that must be cultivated. The relationship with Allah. That starts with submission. Submission, what are you submitting to? You're submitting to what Allah says is the way. So that represents a freeing from any other box that has you as a servant to something other than Allah. Because that servitude can take on any form. Now back when Prophet Muhammad received the message as the last messenger, the servitude was physical idols. Physical, actual idols in Mecca that people would worship. But were those the only idols?
No.
They weren't. What were some of the other items?
People.
Profit, no? Tribalism.
Tribalism. Status.
Warring, hoarding, some of the same struggles.
Keeping up with each other.
Okay. Now, while someone will say, "Well, Islam, how is it relevant? We don't have idols today." No. In fact, we have more idols today than probably any other time that's been documented, because there's so many distractions that take you away from Allah, that take you from that purpose. Right? So all of what you said is connected to the worship. Because even if you're a doctor, and you're a doctor who can't make 5 prayers in the masjid because you're saving lives, right? If your submission is to Allah, that is a form of worship. A form of worship. Because worship can take on many forms. Now, how is it that a regular act can become an act of worship? How can that happen? How does that happen?
Because it's an act of
Say
goodness.
it again, Regina. Intention. Now look at how that expands. So now you're just free because you can do anything and be rewarded on top of praying 5 times a day. But anything that you contribute to the common good, that you contribute to making life better, that you contribute to through service, is also worshiping Allah. And so oftentimes we can create an imbalance within ourselves when we separate the spiritual from the material. So the body has physical needs, we have physical needs for our family, material, but then they're rooted in the spiritual reality. And this is why the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that even the morsel of food that a person provides for their family, if you're a caretaker, a responsible person for your family, even that morsel of food that you provide, when you go out the door and you go to your job, even that morsel can be a sadaqah. Why? Because it's all a matter of intention. And look at, how beautiful is that? That's like, wow. You can do anything. And as long as it's good, because Allah says in the Quran that the believers what? They believe and they do good. As long as it's good. So when we connect this back to the idea of how Allah loves us, how we are loved, because little old me can make a change somehow, that's a freedom. That's not imprisonment. Your soul is free now. Because who was that?
They're not muted. Go ahead.
Huh?
No, they were not muted.
Oh, they were not muted. Okay. Okay, so that is an answer, and I think a very profound answer that came from you all about the meaning of our earthly existence. Because there are people that struggle with this question. You all already know this. It doesn't matter if they're well. There are some people that really have this question, they're confused. And that's Shaitan wants people to be confused. That the meaning of our earthly existence has anything to do with, like some people will say, another thing that we can add, some people might say justice. The meaning of my earthly existence is to make sure that justice, well, the reality of you, the human being, is that you cannot put justice in place. Because that's not your role. You can work for justice in the spirit of making things better, improving the environment, but you cannot, because you cannot put justice in place because Allah is the one that tells us in the Quran that He will set the affairs right. Right? So, but even justice, which is a good answer, I wouldn't argue against it, but it needs to be framed under worship, or informed by a spirit of service and worship. Right? So this is a broadening, this is a freeing, this is something that if we feel that we have an answer to that question, and we all do, then it is something that we should certainly be grateful for. I thank Allah for giving us guidance, because so many people are confused or lost because they think that the meaning of earthly existence is something other than that. And Sister Jalise expressed it very beautifully when she said the example that she gave. Not that the other things that, we are important. So praying is important. Okay? Following dress code or diet code or so those things are important. But they are not the most important things. The A priority is submission. This is why you hear me refer to Islamic belief as a form of emancipation. Allah emancipated you. When you realize Allah emancipated us, that's, so the Muslim's mindset is when they look at the world, what can I do? How can I make things better? These become the questions. What kind of service can I render? See, your service becomes an act of worship. Why? Because your service is rooted in a sense of, say what you said.
Worship and good intentions.
Good intentions and also gratitude. I'm grateful that Allah gave me this, and that's why you hear gratitude referred to as a state of being. In Tasawwuf, in Sufi literature, gratitude is a state. In the Arabic, a state is called maqam. And some of the Sufi scholars say that the first station, the highest station, and the first station is gratitude.
No, and it's interesting that like this Greek philosopher Cicero, he commented that the mother of all virtues is gratitude.
Yes.
So it's something that permeates even outside of the Islamic space as well.
Absolutely. Gratitude. So, even when prescribing things to heal the wayward soul, some of the scholars say start with gratitude. And what does that mean? That means that every morning, I think we had an exercise, every morning you wake up, right? Don't let your day get too far ahead of you without saying, Alhamdulillah, for what I got. I know that I can compose a list of stuff that I don't have and stuff that I want. We all can. But let me not let that list overwhelm the fact that I already got it, and I got it pretty good. And I really got it good because I'm free.
That list becomes very, very small
Mhm.
when you just focus on what you have. Because what you have is so much more than anything else that you could possibly get.
Mhm.
If you just focus on it now, everything that is unspoken in your heart will come.
Mhm.
If you just focus and really, really give thanks to Allah for what you have
Mhm.
and exist right there in that space.
Yeah, well, see, because what you have now, it becomes a matter of your perspective about it. Right? So, the food that you may take for granted, because you got a job and you can afford to go get some food, but now the food takes on a different meaning. Like, wow, this is really a blessing, because I'm eating well. This is not like a birthright. My birthright is to be provided for, because Allah guaranteed that. But the quality, that's a whole different story. And if I got it good, I should recognize that I got it good.
A good question. Have you ever spoken to a Muslim, any age, and not a person who just like haven't become Muslim, or was Muslim but just completely out of it, but a person who's Muslim, they're conscious they're Muslim, they're conscious that Islam is correct, but they're so caught up in whatever they're doing, they could live with Muslims, hear them making salat, hear them doing all that. I don't know how they do it, but don't seem like can get past, not feeling guilty to walk past you, every day, or even pass by the mosque, see Muslims on the street every day. They still, and not feel like, and say to themselves, I know I'm supposed to be doing, I know I ain't supposed to be doing what I'm doing, and that person is doing it, and I could do it just as well as they doing it, but I'm gonna take the chance on when I get around to it. Like, what makes people have, I mean, not that you know the answer to that, but I mean, I can't figure out how a person could do that. I see people all the time, Islam Alaikum, whatever. They're Muslim, but like they're not involved in anything dealing with Islam, but they know it's the right thing, but it's like, but I'll get to it, but not now. Like the rabbit and the turtle. The rabbit, they're running the race, the rabbit knows to run the race, but I got time, I can chill over here. Rabbit, turtle, like, I'm gonna still stay on this path and keep going, though he's going slow, but he's still staying focused, he's not getting distracted. The rabbit gets distracted. Then when he realizes the reality, oh yeah, I forgot I was in a race, then he lost.
Yeah.
I always equate the turtle, Muslims as the turtle. I mean, no, Muslims are the Muslims that have them as the rabbit.
I don't know the answer to that question. But what I would say is that I believe that that's why the Prophet, peace be upon him, prayed for people. Because that's a sad sight. And it's not a critique from a place of arrogance. But that's why the Prophet, and we talked a little bit, I alluded to this a little bit in previous conversations about, the empathy and the compassion and the mercy, these characteristics, these character traits of the Prophet manifested in various scenarios in his seerah. So the people that met him with the worst type of opposition.
He showed them kindness.
Worst type of opposition, right? Where, so you take one of my favorites is the story of Taif.
Yes.
Because I know what I would have did.
Bury that.
And I'm saying did to emphasize. I know what I know, and so for me, for that level of rejection, and for the Prophet to then pray when Allah sent an angel to say to him, if you so desire, not, move over, prophet, Allah got this now, we're going to take care of these people, they should have listened to you. No. If you so desire, your Lord says that we will destroy this village. And the prophet said, no. And he said, because it is my hope that there will emerge from their progeny someone who will say that they're Muslim. And then he prayed for them. Allahumma hdi qawmi fa innahum la ya'lamun. Oh Allah, guide my people. Surely they don't know. Guide them. They don't know. They have no idea. They don't know. And the thing about it is, so there's a narration, I'm going to try to find the hadith, but there's a narration of a hadith where the Prophet, years later, when he was in Medina, was speaking to a group, and he was saying, the people of Ta'if, he was speaking about how the miraculous way and how Allah can bring people out of their situations. And he mentioned the people of Ta'if. And a man stood up in the audience and said, Ya Rasulullah, I'm one of those people that you prayed for. I'm one of the people of Ta'if. I'm one of them. Right? So, part of the story for me that resonates is in the Prophet's response. Because he was still a human being. And he could have said, yeah, I got Allah with me, the angel. Yeah, what? Now what? I told y'all, right? I told y'all. Y'all thought I was playing. No. So that aspect of the prophetic character is something that is a necessity. That caring for people, that compassion, that empathy, and I refer to spiritual teaching and work. One of the ways that I describe it is it's must be administered surgically because people's souls are at stake. So you have to be surgical. It's like you're a heart surgeon. So the heart surgeon can't be sloppy. The heart surgeon can't be sloppy. Right? So the spiritual heart surgeon can't be sloppy. Because it's that deep. You can hurt people in the name of God. You can injure them. You can hurt them, you can drive them away. Not that it's up to you, but they don't know it's not up to you, and you can drive them away if you're not careful.
Ustad.
Yes.
Some people think that we are angels and that we cannot punish. Can you talk a little bit about our responsibility? I won't say not to forgive, but not to be ignorant to the fact that some people do evil things if they're not evil, and they should not be allowed by the community to proceed with it unchallenged, unpunished.
Right. That's a very good question, I guess, right? So we're talking about two different things. We're talking about the individual, then the question is about the community, right? And so a part of the care that we should take is that we shouldn't get things twisted. So this discussion about empathy, compassion, and all this stuff, if you misappropriate it, so let's say you're a policeman, let's say that even as the imam, or as a person in leadership, or even in some type of relationship, right? Then a part of how we're governed is by rights that Allah gave one person over the other, gave the individual member of the community over the entire community, right? And so those rights must be maintained, protected, guarded. And so here, the judgment goes to what's appropriate for the situation, right? Because otherwise, you run the risk of, so what's the parable? I think it's in the Bible, or Christian, don't throw pigs to swine.
Don't cast your pearls before swine.
Don't cast pearls before swine, right? In other words, so if someone is hurting someone or is guilty of a crime, there's an appropriate manner that this situation is dealt with, right? That has nothing to do with what I just mentioned. Because in the case of a victim, for example, because spiritually it may be said, oh, well, it's better to forgive. The individual, the victim, has the right not to forgive. Because it's spiritually better doesn't negate that right from them. Right? And this is why you find in the Quran that Allah says, He always ties the virtue of forgiveness to something that's higher and better. Right? So even when He says, for example, good and evil aren't the same. And we should repel evil with goodness. Right? But in a few verses down, there's an indication that if we do that, that's better. It's better, spiritually better. But it may not be something that we're able to do, especially in the moment. And that goes back to the larger discussion of taking care and understanding that people have rights, they have feelings, they have things that you have to be cognizant of as even in a relationship, right? Even in a one-on-one relationship, people have rights, they have feelings, and so those are the types of things that have to be kept in mind in these types of situations. Okay? Yes.
I wanted to go back to the brother's comment about the people that just walk around, Muslims, and don't see nothing, don't feel nothing.
Mm-hmm.
What about the part in the Quran in Baqarah where Allah says there's some people He created and their hearts are just cold and they're not going to get it no matter what you say or what you do because Allah created them in a manner that their hearts can't perceive it. And then there are some that I understand Allah created just as fuel for the fire. So I don't care how much Islam they're around, it's not going to penetrate, but is that from Allah? I mean, well, Allah says it.
Yeah, but I think so where we have to be careful is that I could never make a judgment like that.
Right.
So I can't read that verse and then say, oh yeah,
he's one of
them. Brother, that's what Allah was talking about. Yeah. that person, that heedless person right there.
But isn't he? If the situation is what he said,
so literally, there are groups of people that are like that. There are groups of people that are destined, prepared for the hellfire. But Allah's knowledge encompasses the specifics of that. We just know that those types of people exist.
Okay.
But we don't know who they are. In fact, I would posit that if we did, we'd be some real dangerous folks.
Don't we know them by their deeds?
No. Because you cannot know the totality of a person's existence by virtue of one deed or two deeds, or even a consistent, because why? The parable of the tortoise and the hare. If it's a marathon, we don't know where they are
in that
marathon, right? And we won't know where they are until the race is over, and the race is over when they die.
And also could it be your deeds are predicated on your intentions too, right?
Right.
So, and we don't know.
So a lot of that, not that we can't be judgmental, because I don't like to say that. Because bad is bad, wrong is wrong, and we should call those things as they are. Bad behavior is bad behavior, inappropriate behavior. But the thing is that we have to be careful about pronouncing judgments, and that's connected for me to. So you see it in the community. So people that are quick to make a judgment and call somebody a kafir. Well, where's that come from? That comes from, I'm looking at this person, I'm evaluating the behavior. I don't see what Allah said in the Quran a believer should be doing, so I am going to know. Because you have to take I out of it. Because that's not what, and that's why I said about cultivating the relationships. And, a part of that, even on the interpersonal level, is brotherhood, sisterhood, all of these things, right? And the evaluations or the judgments that we make in those different contexts, because otherwise, then we can become very tyrannical, very easily. Very easily, because how heavy is the judgment of calling someone a kafir? You just cast them out of Islam altogether. Because they're not doing what you.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, it's very, very seductive. It's seductive to look at someone and go, you are outside of the fold.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you are outside the fold and I can identify that, it means that I'm within.
Right.
And that elevates me and gives me this illusion of superiority.
There you go.
And that's a dangerous place forward to the other.
Yeah, it's very dangerous.
Man, she and I were thinking the exact same thing.
Because it feels something in you. Really, it has nothing to do with the other person.
Right.
It feels something in you.
We were thinking the exact same thing, exact same moment. Because I'm sitting here looking at you and listening to the group, and I'm saying to myself, it's so simple. I mean, why can't everybody understand this? But then I'm saying, now see, you're doing it now. You're saying that we're in the best group. We're in the best group right now. Why can't everybody else be like us?
No.
That's what I'm saying. I'm sitting here saying.
Okay.
I'm telling you. I'm sitting here saying. Wow. So I'm not saying, whoa.
You hold up on that one.
Yeah, right. I'm saying I'm doing it now.
Okay.
I'm doing it right now.
So, okay, well.
So she said you got to be so careful.
Yes. And so that's the whole point of the intention with, the spiritual path.
Right.
That is always about you.
Right.
Always about you. Why is it always about you?
Because it's about purification of the soul. Straight up.
Yeah, but then why am I saying it's always about you? Like, what's the end game?
Because you got to answer by yourself, not by
Because at the end of the day, Allah ain't going to ask you about nobody else but you.
Yeah, what you doing, brother?
That's it. And that's it. So all that you should care about is the well-being of your own soul. First. Now, if you have the responsibility for the well-being of the souls of others, frankly, that's a quite scary position to be in, from my perspective. Extremely, when people jump up and say they want to be imams, I just think, wow.
Because you don't know.
Nobody wants it.
Yeah, you shouldn't want, like, if somebody jumps up and says, I'll be the imam, I got this, that's the person for me that shouldn't be the imam. Why? Because it sounds like they don't understand the weight. Just imagine the weight of, yeah, I got to answer for me, but then I got to answer for
what you say to somebody.
Yeah, and there's a hadith that I was taught a few years ago. I have to find it, but it's a hadith that speaks to this, and it paints the scenario of a father or a guardian, right, that had people that he was responsible for, and he went through his accounting, and he passed. And then he thought the accounting was over, and then he heard voices. Wait a minute, Lord, wait a minute. He was responsible for me here. He was responsible for me here. And the hadith describes, because Allah is just, taking good deeds from him and giving them the good deeds. So his bad deeds, his good deeds diminished, and his bad deeds outnumbered the good deeds. So now he was in a different state. That hadith scared the mess out of me. Set me straight. It set me straight, and you know, I can't find it right now because I want it, but I remember it. So because you don't play with people's souls.
No, so two things. Yeah. One, based on exactly what you were saying there, I've been looking for that hadith for the past like 6 months as well.
Yeah.
Literally, I've been looking because the way I remember it, this man, he was getting in, and his family was calling out like, "You owe me this. You never did this."
That's right.
So it's exactly the same. A lot, and I'm like, okay, I know I want to find it, and I just can't remember where I came across it. So if you find it, please do let me know, inshallah. But something going back to what you were talking about earlier on, the when it's all about you. Mm-hmm. I just remember a conversation I was having last night with someone, and we were saying something similar, right? That it's all, even when somebody comes to you. Mm-hmm. And they're testing you, or they're challenging, or whatever it is, whatever that test looks like. Mm-hmm. Even in that moment, as much as that person might be wrong, it is still about you, right? Because you could respond in a way that is completely atrocious. And now, even though that person has their own stuff to answer for, you now have your piece to answer for, right? So regardless of what it is, at a certain level, it is still always about you. Even if you're dealing with somebody who's very problematic in that moment, it still has to come back down to you, because your response is still what you have to answer for. What you say to them is still what you have to answer for, regardless of what is going on there. So it's always this, like, you are always part of that test, even though somebody else is involved in it. It is.
I was in class this weekend on spirituality, and he was basically talking about like a measure of faith is that you leave things that don't concern you, and that you make it a priority that you do reflect on yourself. Because if you're out passing judgment on other people and doing this and doing that, then you're neglecting, the things that you are doing incorrectly, or that you're not living up to. And so to, like, I guess piggyback off his point, he was saying that a sister asked a question. She was like, we're supposed to look at people's behavior, even poor behavior, with the eye of mercy. That's one of the things he was saying. And so she was like, basically, like, how can you do that if someone has like they just always like come at you like crazy, or like like there's like a character thing. It's not just like I said this isn't. He was basically like that he was like basically try to look at the, if you can kind of deal with them and deal with them, but if you can't, then just make it a point to distance yourself from them and like minimize the context. So maybe somebody you just don't click.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe if you see the person every 6 months at an event or something like that, you can kind of tolerate it or be cordial and respectful. But you're not just around them putting yourself in that position. Like he said, to make sure that you think about or your perception of distancing yourself from them is to save your heart from thinking illy of them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always about you.
So I think that that's the struggle, this idea that of what is an open heart, and that we continuously struggle with our own heart. We're not actually ever struggling with the behavior of other people or the situations that other people put before us. We're not even struggling with the circumstances of our life. We are actually always struggling with the condition of our own heart, with like the struggle to engage ourselves honestly, to have empathy, to have compassion, to have mercy, and to like stop the ego, to stop the part of ourselves that would allow us to be blind to the situation and circumstances of other people, and then blind to our own selves, the way in which we are harming our own souls. But it's not, it's continuous.
It's a continuous struggle. And I'd like to go back to, so you started out, Tiffany, saying that a measure of a person's faith is to stay out of the affairs of other people. Right, so let's unpack that a little bit, right? Because how hard is that to do in a society like ours, that we have all kinds of details about everybody else's life and what everybody else is doing, right? And there's very little that reminds people, unless they struggle to get it, that it's not even about that. It's not about keeping up with the Joneses. It's not about someone's ibadah or someone's character, someone's adab. It's not about any of that. It's about your character. It's about your adab. And the metaphor that came to mind when you were talking, like it works for me, right? So, I mean, y'all used to watch the show Kung Fu.
With David Carradine. With David Carradine. Yeah.
Kung Fu. Yeah. Google it. Y'all young folk, Google Kung Fu. But David Carradine, his character was a white Shaolin monk. Not that it's not possible.
It's Hollywood. It's possible in Hollywood.
But yeah. A white Shaolin monk who happened to not know Chinese, but he's a Shaolin monk, right? And he was in the Wild West, And you remember when he used to walk around and encounter tough situations? Yeah. He always walked a certain way, slow and measured, and it took so much to get him to fight. Right. And this guy would get punched and kicked. I remember one episode, these cowboy guys confronted him, and they threw whiskey in his face, and the guy punched him, and he took the punch, and he was just standing, and he said, I don't do that. That's not, his whole exchange, and we used to watch that show and say, you're a Shaolin monk. Trash this guy. They just go ahead. But at the time watching the show, the part that we didn't understand as children was, so the higher principle is that you avoid harm. And you only inflict harm when it's necessary. But the high goal is to avoid harm. Right? And so avoid doing harm. Right. So avoid causing hurt. Avoid using the physical part. Right? And what Qais was saying made me think of that, because within the parameters of the legal system of Islam, if someone injures you, you have a right to recompense. But it's exact. So if somebody steps on your foot, stomps on your foot, and they injure your toe, you can't cut their leg off. Even though your human nature, depending on your personality, people say it all the time. You slap me, I'm gonna kill you. You can't kill somebody for slapping you. I mean, legally, in no law, you can't kill someone for slapping you, right? You can stop them from slapping you. You can grab their hand. You can slap them back even. You can't kill them, right? And so this understanding of how things balance, the nature of recompense and retribution, all these are separate discussions. These are different discussions. The discussion that we're to bring it back to what we've been discussing all these weeks, because we're not angels. People aren't angels. So people do what people do. Angels do what angels do. But because it's about our struggle with our own hearts, because it's about our struggle with our own egos, because it's about all of that, we seek inspiration from the example of the Prophet. Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. I use David Carradine as just, but we seek inspiration from the Prophet. I mean, the Prophet had a neighbor that threw trash on his doorstep because he didn't like him, and he wasn't Muslim. He was a Jew. He didn't like the Prophet, so every day when he went out, took his trash, and instead of putting it where it belonged, he dumped it in front of the Prophet's door. So he would have to walk around the trash, and every day the Prophet got up, and when he would leave, he would pick up the trash and remove it, and not say a word. He didn't go, because again, this is real now. Like for me, I've had bad neighbors, right? Put trash in where it doesn't belong. Now I've done all kinds of stuff. It's MR stuff. It's not the stuff that should have been done. I'm confessing that I did it, right? But the Prophet didn't do that. And it's not corny. It's, when you think about it, the changes in how we behave are so subtle that we don't realize how powerful they are, right? And so the story says that the Prophet did it, ignored the man, didn't say a word. When he saw him, he talked to him like nothing happened. And then one day, the man didn't come out of his house. Second day, the man didn't come out of his house. Third day. The third day, the Prophet went to his house and asked his family, "Where's so-and-so? I haven't seen him. And there's no trash in front of my house." So his family said, "Well, so-and-so's been sick." Now, the story could have ended there. The story didn't end there. The Prophet said, "He's sick. I want to go see him." So just imagine if you were the person throwing trash, then the Prophet comes to visit you because he heard you were sick. And when he went to visit him, he didn't say, "Take Shahada, you're going to die." No, he said, "How you doing? I pray that you get better." And then he left. When that moment, if you can imagine how that would impact the person, he knew who the Prophet was. He knew what he did. The Prophet didn't do it to him, is what led to him being Muslim. And so for me, the inspiration is that we have that potential. Everyone. This is what it means to me when we say that we give da'wah through our behavior and through our character. And oftentimes, because character is portrayed as, it's very scary though, it's a very scary place. Why is it scary? Because nobody wants to be perceived as pushover. Nobody wants to be perceived as a doormat. Nobody wants to be, and oftentimes the injunctions are for people who are in a position where they can do something. It's not for people who are oppressed, for example. It's not for, so you would never tell a person who's already victimized, oh, it's okay, just keep, it'll be fine. No, because that's a different conversation. You find the injunctions in the Quran always speak to when you are empowered to do something. When you have a choice to seek retribution or forgive, Allah calls us to the better choice. Okay? So we're going to take the last, we're going to take another 10 minutes. We're going to read. So go to point number 30. And Fatima, read first, please.
To recite the testimony of faith, belief, and shahada.
Did we already read this?
Yeah.
We did? I'm sorry, then read 31.
To recite the Quran.
We stopped at 32.
We read 31 too? Oh, okay. We stopped at 32. All right. Don't have 32?
It's on the back. It's on the back of the same page. I have 33, but that's the last one.
Well, first you said you didn't have 32.
Oh, because I gave it to.
So that right there is starting fitna. And you said you didn't have something that you in fact actually have. Okay, go ahead.
All right, 32 to acquire knowledge.
Who read this too?
Yeah.
Because I got notes on it.
Really?
Well, you said didn't you notice the dogs and didn't have the sense.
Oh, okay. All right, so then I'm going to have to read because
Then I gotta go zero something.
Okay, on second thought, what we're going to do, this is a part that I actually forgot to bring in. I thought I did good this morning. I set the clock forward, psychologically said to myself, you're not losing an hour. You're not losing an hour. You're gaining.
Told you about that yesterday.
Okay. I thought I had it, and I left what I needed. Oh. All right, so we can, because we're going to need the, does anyone have any questions from the last 2 points, reading the Quran or acquiring knowledge?
Does the Quran, well, let me form the question before, does the Quran have a certain right over us for a percentage or a certain amount of it to be read, like on a regular basis, like physically read, not just recited?
No. No, the idea behind reading the Quran is that we read it regularly. And so there are different prescriptions for that, but they relate to the instruction of Quran. So for example, those of us that when we memorize Quran, we were taught to maintain a regimen of reading a 30th a day. Right? And for the most part, that's what I do every day. I read the 30th. Right? Every day. So that means that I go through the entire Quran once a month. Now, technically, I should be doing more because some of my teachers, they complete the entire Quran twice a month. One sheikh in particular, who I'm particularly fond of, may Allah have mercy on him, he passed away. His name was Sheikh Ahmed Ibaid. He was from Egypt, and he was a sheikh that I met later in my life, on my journeys to Egypt. And when we met each other, and he found out who I was and everything, and he found out that I was Hafiz, he said, "Oh, really?" He said, "Well, you know Ramadan is 2 months away." He said, "How many times are you going to finish the Quran in Ramadan?" Right? He sort of caught me off guard because I was like, "Well, at least twice." I said, "Well, at least twice." He said, "Twice." He said, "You need to come with our group because we finish the Quran once a day." So we finish the Quran 30 times in Ramadan. Now, of course, there's ways to do that, right? So it's not reciting Abdul Basit, Tajweed, Minshawi. No, there's pacing, there's a rhythm, and it's a group. And it was a group of 10 people. They split up and they finished the Quran, but they did it every day. In addition to working and doing whatever they did, okay? So that became, something to shoot for, right? But, I appreciated the fact that there are different ways, right? And you have people who will complete the Quran in a week. I know someone who reads the Quran through.
What is that called? What is that called? I heard I had a tape of it a long time ago. The quick recitation.
So that's called, in Arabic, that's called hadar. That's a H-A-D-A-R. Hadar. That's intended. You may have learned this with Imam Anas, that there's different phases. One of them is called hadar.
Oh, okay. Hey,
that's fast.
Could you write the script, please?
That's speed.
What's tartil? Is that another?
Tartil is slow. Tartil is the opposite. Tartil is slow. And then you have a medium pace. But it's all pacing, right? And it's like speed reading. So you can speed read the Quran, but that's not recommended for reading the Quran thoughtfully. Because there in the speed reading, the goal is just to get through the Quran. Okay? But back to your question, Fatima, in constant engagement with the Quran is what we seek. And that should occur, the thoughtful engagement, every day. Even if it's just one verse.
So it's like quality over quantity.
Quality over quantity. And never minimize or trivialize any amount. Even if it's just one verse. Read that. Because you'll find that over time, what will inform your thinking more or most is what the Quran says.
A follow-up question for that then is, so for someone who doesn't know Arabic, or when they're reading, like, if you don't know, so is it recommended to read the English?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So reading the Quran in Arabic is virtuous. Reading the Quran in Arabic is the key to opening up some deeper insights and understanding of Allah's word. Reading the Quran in Arabic is a blessing. But if you don't know Arabic, or if your Arabic is not good, don't let shaitan fool you into thinking, I can't read the Quran until I know Arabic. No. But now what you would be expected to do, or you should do, is invest in a good translation. Now, for those of us that like challenges, the translation of Yusuf Ali provides, because it's old English. It's old English. And in some regards, it's like if you read Shakespeare, you know. And I remember a brother one time came to me, and it was a few years back, and he was asking me about the meaning of the word doeth. Because he read it as a word. He said, yeah, Sheikh, I've been, this is word I read, doth. I was like, doth. So he got it, and he showed me, and it was doeth. And that helped me understand the challenge that if you don't know, if you don't have a clue about Old English, a person could be discouraged, which is why it's a good thing that there's so many translations of the Quran. And so your objective is, so if you're a more studious person, I recommend Message of the Quran by Brother Muhammad Asad, because it's a very studious, it's a Quran that he has a lot of commentary in English in the footnotes, and he followed Message of the Quran. And Muhammad Asad. And
he was a German.
He was a what?
He converted to Islam. He was German.
You can get on YouTube.
He was German and Jewish.
Oh wow.
I thought all Jews were German. No. I don't mess with him. Let's mess
What about pitfall? What do you think about that?
Pitfall's another good one. And the good thing about pitfall, mainly because you could at least you could go to Borders and Barnes and Nobles and get a pocket-sized paperback, and it's something that you can carry in your pocketbook, carry in your car, in your briefcase. And that's good. This translation is relatively new, the Quran. This is one that I'm reading and using.
Who is it?
And this is by M.A.S. Abdul Halim.
It's called The Quran?
The Quran. You can get this off Amazon. It costs $14. There's a new translation called the Study Quran. It's available on Amazon, and it's probably the latest translation to come out. There's some controversy surrounding it, but we don't shy away from controversy. So the thing that I would encourage you to do is to read it with a teacher. And we're actually thinking about, developing a class around it.
Who was?
Okay, well, go ahead.
Who was the first one?
So the first one was
Message of Quran.
The Message of the Quran. Muhammad Asad.
Yes, ASAD.
ASAD. And this is how it looks. So if you have an iPad, you can download it from the App Store. I think it costs $12 or $10.
It's a little pricey on Amazon.
Wow. Did you see what I thought I saw? You don't want to pay for that?
Me?
Yeah.
Got one.
Oh, okay. No.
There you go judging, huh? See?
No, because these young folk, man, you never know. They like all free. My kids told me they like all free stuff. Yeah. My kids said, why would you pay for it? Yeah. But you can get it for free.
I was thinking it's cheap.
No. Oh, okay. Okay. Cool. Okay, so Tiffany and then Hakeem.
Oh, the study Quran, is this the one that talks about this kind of like unity between Abrahamic religions or something like this?
It's the what?
It's like kind of geared towards like a perspective of like a unity or like a
Yeah,
sameness
so
between,
the
like,
biggest controversy that I've heard is the idea of perennialism. Perennialism suggests that all of the religions have a common whatever, and it's a philosophical, a common truth, which they do. So you have to be careful sort of throwing that idea out completely, especially since there are verses in the Quran that speak, favorably of people of true Christian faith, people of true Jewish faith. And it's a messy discussion in tafsir, but you shouldn't be quick to pass a judgment because the study of Quran is the work of classically trained scholars. And, publications, book publications, particularly of the religious nature in the Muslim community, there is this tendency to discredit something that does not fit a particular narrative, whether it's Sunni or Shi'i or classical or whatever, right? And for the seeker of knowledge, your pursuit of knowledge has to be above those sectarian, because your goal, your end goal is what? The truth. But that's one of the biggest controversies that I've heard about it. Yes.
So I've seen like children's versions of like the Bible and different things like that. Do you know if there are any children's versions of the Quran, and what are your viewpoints on them?
So I haven't seen it.
Yeah. Just last week we were at Quba on 52nd Street, and it was a children's Quran, and then it's like clearly for children.
In English?
In English. And it's like my first Quran, and some illustrations, which a lot of people argue over these things, but it was for children.
Yeah.
And I have seen it. Those were like small kind of children.
It was like gardens, animals.
No, not that. The question was like the words, like the language, like
very simple language that would be appropriate for developmentally for a child.
Okay. And the thing, so it had like illustrations and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean,
everybody.
So that's not.
So this is
that's
thing.
not a Quran. That's not a Quran. That's a commentary or something. But
right.
Imam Anas tells you Quran, and that's not.
Yeah. So when we say Quran, we are referring to, in the first place, the Mus'haf. So this is not the Quran. This is a translation of the Quran. So the children's Quran would be permissible to use, even if it has illustrations, because it's not the Quran. It's a translation.
Oh. Do the same rules apply to, I'm assuming not to the, what did you say the word?
The Mus'haf.
The Mus'haf?
No.
Okay. So a woman
because if you put illustrations in the Mus'haf, then what are you doing? You're altering the Quran. Yes.
Okay. And these pocket ones that we can carry around, they don't have the same rules as the Quran.
No.
So you can read them, the ones in English, and the woman can read them at any time?
Mm-hmm. Because the strict prohibition is for the Arabic scriptures.
So is the distinction like the intention of the title of the book? Because like sometimes if you get a translation, it'll say like the Holy Quran or the Noble Quran, something like this, but sometimes it'll say the meaning of the Quran.
Right.
So
it's always so, because there are different, so books are published with certain educational objectives and agendas in mind, and as a student of knowledge you should be mindful of that, because there are some bad translations. There are some translations of the Quran that you shouldn't read, because they were written with the intention of finding fault in the word of Allah, and so there are some translations that you should avoid, right? But yes. So.
I guess the question is more like the definition of Musaf. So if you have like something that says it's the Quran, but it's perhaps it's like English and Arabic.
Right,
That's not a Musaf.
that's not the Musaf. The same way that the tafsir, so even if the tafsir is in Arabic, the Quran is there, and then there's commentary from a human being, that's not the Quran. That's not the Musaf. It's a commentary on the Quran.
So then, why? So if it was a Musaf and you had your picture, that would make it not a Musaf.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
But that's bad. I did any underration of the Arabic.
Right, because, so I understand your question. So because there's a standard for what the Mus'haf is, even if so there may be, I don't know, I haven't seen an Arabic Quran with illustrations for children, but it wouldn't be considered the Quran in that instance. If it were to exist, or wouldn't be considered the Mus'haf, definitely, because there's an agreed upon standard of what the Mus'haf is. And all of the Mus'hafs look the same throughout the world. English speaking country, not. All the Mus'hafs are the same.
Question.
Yes.
So I want to go back earlier. You were talking about the virtues of either reading in Arabic or English and the blessings. So how important would it be for, like, if you were able to read it, memorize it, but you would understand what you were reading, how?
If you were able to do what?
If you were good at reading and memorizing it, but you didn't understand it, what you were reading necessarily, the blessings the same, or is it doesn't matter? I know it matters to understand, but if you memorize it and if you're able to recite it and all of this, is that, I know you get blessings for that, but what effect does whether or not you understand or not, does that mean anything at all? Is it just?
Yeah, it does, because you're still missing understanding. So understanding should always be a part of why we engage the Quran.
But you can do that and not speak Arabic or know Arabic. You can learn how to memorize it, but you may not know Arabic.
Yeah, because that's a thing. It happens all over the world. Like when children memorize Quran and they compete in Quran competitions all the time. They don't know, they don't understand. Right. But there is a virtue in the memorization and the recitation.
Even without that.
Even without that. Last question is, yes. Go ahead, Fatima.
Is that why that when you see the Quran, when you see a Mus'haf, there's a border around the Arabic part? So that
if there's anything else in it, what's outside of the border is not Quran. So Tiffany mentioned the Noble Quran is set up that way. So all of the commentary and all, so that's why you have the different design, different graph boxes and stuff for the additional commentary. Yeah, because a lot of care, and this has been centuries, a lot of care is given to the standard of the Quran, of the Mus'haf. And it's important because the Mus'haf is so any Arabic bound book is the Mus'haf. So even if Anas says go get the Quran, he means the Mus'haf. And when he teaches you to memorize or to recite, he's teaching you from the Mus'haf. Now what you use to gain understanding is different. It's different. Okay?
Can I share one thing with the class before we go? One comment?
Yeah, because I just told Anas that use it.
No, I just wanted to say, when we were talking earlier about being responsible for our own souls and how important that is, I just wanted to share with you guys that I learned that lesson some years ago very clearly from the Imam. We were in a community meeting, and everybody in the community, we wanted to make bayat to the sheikh, and we all filled out our papers and everything, and the sheikh went home, and everybody was 2 weeks later or sometime later, he came back to us with all of those bayats and all of those papers, and he told us all, I researched this, I researched the idea of bayat and so forth, and responsibly, and guess what? He gave us all back our bayats, and that profoundly affected me that day. From that point on, I started realizing you know, you gotta take this thing serious. You know, you can't just, it's people's souls. So I just wanted to share with you.
Well, wait, what he gave you the option to take your back, wasn't it?
No, he told us here.
Yes, he gave us an option to take back our bail.
Oh, you start something.
He gave us an option, and I didn't take mine back.
Repeat it. I didn't hear it. Start somewhere.
I still have bail.
Because the way I remember it, you had the option.
Yes, me too, Vernon. Me too.
Okay. Camilla will be doing the presentation on
Five mile louder, please.
Came on and she was confirming what.
This is just a reminder, since everybody is here, if you can stay after the last class around 1:45, 2 o'clock. There's a sister who has been working on a breastfeeding brochure for the Muslim community, and she's presented to a group. Men and women are welcome. She needs feedback, and that'll be today after the last class around 1:45, 2. There'll be light refreshments. But if you can stay, please do.
Is that one of the books? Stop this one. Yeah, this is the other one. No, she's actually in the computer.
Assalamu alaikum, baby. I just want to text.
Shukran, Brother Kai. Assalamu alaikum.
Be safe here. I'll text you later on, okay? Say it.
Okay. All right, Sabura. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Oh, you did. Okay.
This is something to go. We all